Hello and welcome to Beyond Boundaries. Today I am joined by two very good friends who I've spent many a day and evening with. Right, we've had some good times around the world, and we are going to dive into some brilliant chat around LatAm, an area that fascinates me possibly more than anywhere else in the world right now from an insurtech and an innovation and insurance perspective. So a big welcome to Hugues and Óscar. And I'm going to put you under the umbrella of the Pan-American Insurtech Alliance, or the AIP, but there is so much more to both of you as well. So the chair, Hugues, and the deputy chair, Óscar, is that your deputy president, vice president? Something like that. I mean, this is terribly researched, right? Welcome, gentlemen. Let's start with that. Óscar, what is your title within the alliance?
Well, I'm the vice president. Hugues is the president within the alliance. I'm also president of Insurtech Mexico and CEO of my own Insurtech.
Amazing, yes. Right? Let's get into that in a sec. Hugues, let's start with you. I think I last saw you with a glass of red wine in hand at ITC Vegas. Maybe, I can't remember. Maybe before. Sorry, maybe since. 20 years in. With a proper job, maybe?
Yeah, and no, not 20 years, 10 years, 10 years. But 10 years. I live in South America for the last 20 years. Yeah.
Okay, but you did your stint in the incumbents, right? I remember, like, you've got BNP, and then you maybe a consultant, PwC, or one of the big consultancies as well. I remember, like, from one of our very first conversations. But tell me what you're up to now. Tell me about your journey into this world of insurtech, right? And then also, how did you arrive? Because you don't sound like a man who's originally from Latin America.
Yeah, you know that I'm French, but I live in South America for the last 20 years. I lived 15 years in Argentina, right now 10 years in Chile. I am an actuary. I worked always in incumbent like BNP Paribas Cardiff, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Marsh Group. And for the last 10 years, I am working for Latin American guys in the insurtech and innovation space, working in as an advisor, working as a VC fund. And for sure, right now, very happy to share the floor with Óscar, to run the AIP, because it's a very large alliance, the first one in Latin America with 250 members. So we're going to talk about that.
Huge. Yeah, and congrats on that. And Óscar, yeah, maybe a quick introduction. So again, a man of many talents, right? So we've got, I can't remember, there was a mixed martial art or a martial art in there somewhere. There's free diving, maybe law. And then an entrepreneur as well, right?
Yeah, it's a weird mix, a weird bunch of things I do. So mainly, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm founder of Journey Sports. It's an insurtech specialized in covering athletes. So we have 137,000 athletes covered. As well, I'm the president of Insurtech Mexico. That's the trade association for insurtechs within the Mexican region. And with Hugues, we co-founded the AIP, which is the association that joins Mexico, Colombia, Chile, and Argentina within one shared development goal, in order to make the easier for a startup to come from Colombia to Mexico, from Chile to Argentina. This kind of ease of mobility for the innovation within our Latin American ecosystem.
Well, and is that because it was difficult for them to make the move between, or did you see as a bunch of individuals an opportunity to collaborate?
It was disjointed. The thing is that even though we have the same culture, the same language, the same beliefs, and the same challenges, more or less within the whole region, from Mexico to Chile. The thing is that if you don't know anybody that's in one particular country, it's hard to break into the country, because there's a lot of trust that needs to be involved. There's a lot of services like lawyers, accountants. You need to get to know the law. And there was this little thing that it was hard for a company, for a startup more so, that is in Colombia to get to know and understand the particularities of the Mexican market. So by building this alliance, it was easier for them to have soft landings within every country. And there has been a lot of mobility. Mexico has accepted a lot of companies from Colombia, Chile, Argentina, and we've sent a lot of companies from Mexico to these countries. So I think it's a goal by itself, that if we have the same culture, the same language, the same belief systems, then we should have the same innovations and make it easy for them to get anywhere in the continent.
Oh, I love it. And now, so how did it? What was the moment, the aha moment? When did you join together? Was it like sitting around a table at an event, or as a phone call? One of you came to another. What was
so I think there's two answers here, and there's two perspectives: the Óscar perspective and the Hugues perspective.
Okay, great.
But just for some context, Hugues and I met on ITC Vegas on 2022. Yeah, in 2022. And we became instant friends. We were on a French place dinner. Of course, I met Hugues on a French dinner.
Sure.
And
you never eat any other food. Wherever he is in the world, there has to be the finest food, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, we became instant friends and we get to know each other. And I was not the president of Insurtech Mexico by then. I was a consult. I was in the board, but I was not the president. So when I became president, I called Hugues and I told him like, hey, we are already good friends. We know because Hugues helped found the Chilean Insurtech Association as well as the Colombian one. And I was like, hey, we're already good friends. We know each other. We know the presidents. We're all friends. Why don't we start with a shared goal in order to make it easier for our companies to go from nation to nation? And he just went like, that's a great idea. I know the people. Let's start to build it. And we started building toward the first ITC LatAm that was on Miami. And on 2023,
yeah, sure.
I was president by then. And that was like the inception for the thing. But I'm sure Hugues has another perspective on this story. So off to you, Hugues.
No, thank you, Óscar. But it's the same perspective. But the only way I would like to add is from the traditional sector, I think that every country is too small for them. For example, for the big reinsurer, Chile or Colombia are too small to have a huge impact. And when we analyze the Latin American market, it's 250 million inhabitants, so it's very large continents. And we have a lot of similarity between Colombia, Chile, Argentina, Mexico, Brazil too. So when with Óscar, we say, hey, we must build something very huge in order to create a very large impact in Latin America. That's the first step, the first inception, as Óscar said. And right now we are here.
And how does it manifest? And again, that's what I mean by that word is so you have an alliance which I can understand almost internally, right? So you have associations that come together, you have collaboration, you have this mobility, Óscar, that you talked about from a startup perspective. How does that transmit to creating opportunity for those members or the outside world connecting with LatAm as an entity? Hugues, what is what is that the value, right? Because I get some of it, but there must be more, right? It must be must enable a bunch of things to happen.
So first, thanks, Matt. First, every association in the AIP has the same values and the same purpose, is to co-build with a collaborative way the protection of the future with technology. That's the first point. Purpose and values. So right now we have other way to work. First, we are very concrete about the local impact. For example, AIM in Mexico must work with the Mexican ecosystem. That's great. Colombia is the same way, Argentina, Chile. But we know that for a lot of things, we can work all together. For example, when we are working with Cardiff in Chile. Cardiff, Chile is very interesting to work with insurtechs, not in Chile, in Latin America. So the idea is how we can make a traction between Mexico, Argentina for Chile, for example. The first one is about knowledge, about regulation. For example, there is a very new impact in Latin America that is open insurance. But open insurance is a very great hot topic in Chile, but it's someone in Colombia, is the same one in Mexico. So we say how we can work all together in order to have the same view, the same knowledge, how we can share about competencies. So that's the way we work.
Love it. Óscar, I remember, so I was in Mexico, was it December time? Last year,
November
I think.
time, yeah.
November, was it? For your very successful, very very brilliant event. I was really impressed and felt pretty ignorant when I arrived because there was so much going on and I loved it, right? And I felt a real kind of connection to it. And I remember you talking about open innovation, and I remember talking about the regulators out there. Keeping with Hugues' point about regulation, what is the response from the regulators, right? Because there's they can provide a pipeline to innovation, or they can throttle innovation depending on where in the world they sit and how they approach and receive this stuff. How are you? What's the response in Mexico and the work that you're doing with the regulators, and maybe broaden that out to the alliance as a whole across the territories?
Well, I think, on regulators, we have this saying here that if it's not broke, don't fix it. So the agreement we met with our regulators is that they have some red lines that must not be crossed, like capacity, well, right? That these kind of things that are really important and we do not want to cross them. And as long as we steer off of those red lines, then they have more a laissez-faire kind of attitude to the regulation, which is great because that enables a lot of opportunities to foster, to grow, to let them see if they have any worth without actually changing the words of the regulation itself, because they allow for these kind of things. So one thing I learned from the fintech ecosystem here in Mexico that they created a law for that ecosystem is that if you create a regulation that doesn't have a good vision on the future, then you end up constraining the market, and it becomes a roadblock for development, for innovation, for these kind of things. I do not want to enable regulation that might become a roadblock for further innovation down the line. So the best thing to do is to, do not touch what we have, because with that regulation, we went from 4 companies in 2019, 7 companies in 2019, to 75 companies today, 2025. So that's good. If it's not broken, do not fix it, And on the other side, the regulators are quite open. So they are like, if it's not expressed on the regulation, we will allow it to occur, as long as it doesn't cross these kind of things, which is good, because a lot of these things are, testing boundaries, but not the boundaries that put in peril the market itself. Yeah. So we need to have a good collaboration with our regulators. I have direct line with the Comisión Nacional de Seguros y Fianzas, which is our National Insurance Commission, and the defense and the commission that protects the users of insurance here in Mexico. Those are 2 separate entities, and both of them have good relations with the association. So by fostering these good relations, whenever we have something that is between a gray line, it's not to the tasting of the regulators, we can have a call, we can sit everyone on a round table, we can have talks and find solutions before taking this to tribunals. That makes it more efficient to solve. So I'm like pushing that kind of agenda here in Mexico, and I can see my fellow associations, Colombia, Chile, Argentina, have the same relations with the regulators. I've gone to speak to Chile, to Colombia, to Brazil, and they all have the regulators within the events, which is a good sign that they are, in talks, that they are present, that they do care about the ecosystem, and they are quite open, to see how technology can solve the many troubles that we have here in the region for insurance market, and low penetration perhaps being the king of the crown of the jewel of the crown for the troubles we have in the region.
Sure. And taking that low penetration, right? Because I think that then gets us into some of the nuances that I certainly saw in Mexico, and Hugues, I'd be keen on opening that up through your eyes. And by the way, I read the reports that I think you certainly lead on, if not write the entirety, Hugues, which I love, by the way. So keep up the good work on those. So that under penetration. So what we see in the rest of the world, and our job at Sønr, of course, is to scout and scan the markets for what's going on and what the competitors are up to, and who are the insurtechs, and are they enabling technology, or are they full stack lemonades of the world, and etc. What we see is a huge majority in this kind of in the slightly more developed markets, I guess, or mature markets, where you have a lot of these businesses are designed to work and collaborate with incumbents to advance from A to B. Yeah, and much more kind of horizon one. It's trying to fix or evolve the business of today. Equally, what you have in LatAm market is, as you say, Óscar, it's an underserved market, right? It's much less developed from an insurance position, which gives so many new opportunities for new businesses to come on board. So in terms of kind of like the types of businesses that we're seeing within the LatAm market, and I appreciate the enormity of the question because of the size of the market within that. What is the kind of like the makeup of the business between those that maybe are more on the enablement side, to the MGAs, to the to the difference in kind of plays that you're seeing locally versus globally? Hugues, I don't know. I mean, again, your reports talk to this this kind of stuff, and I'm not maybe asking for detailed percentages, but I know this is kind of commentary that I've read in the past.
Yes. Well, from the ecosystem, insurtech ecosystem side, we can observe basically 50% dedicated to distribution. Okay, right. So comparator, B2B, B2C, or some kind of distribution, and 50% for enablers. So the way is, in the case of distribution, there are very few actors that is direct B2C. So there is very, I think that there is about 10 insurtech neo-insurer like Lemonade in Latin America, basically in Mexico and in Brazil. But as you understand, in Latin America, every insurtech needs to work with incumbents. So in our association, the incumbents are a large part of the work, because they work with insurtech in order to make a growing insurtech ecosystem. Yep. So what is the idea? And I'm going to answer to your question, but the idea is in every country to have a very large insurtech association with insurtech and incumbents, to work with traditional incumbent association and with the regulators. Okay, that's the way to work with in the collaborative way. So from a business perspective in Latin America, what we can observe first, a large part of insurance sector is to work with traditional intermediaries. First, the second one is bancassurance. But depending on the country, for example, in Mexico or Chile, bancassurance is very important. But in other countries, in Center of America, there are very few actors in bancassurance. So what is the way to work with insurtech? The insurtech must to add value in the value chain of bancassurance or insurance traditional sector. Okay, and the last part, and I think that is the most innovation part, is the new digital platform like Nubank in Brazil. Nubank is 100 million clients, Mercado Libre, 100 million clients of. So the way is how we can work with this kind of new actor in Latin America to distribute and to include more and more people. Why? And I'm going to finish here. In the digital platform, you can access to people that is in the very at the below of the pyramid. So very people with very lack of resources. So the good way is to help InsurTech to work with digital platform, banks, insurer, traditional broker. So that's the way.
Now, how receptive? So again, we're talking about collaboration in a different way, right? We're talking about connecting two parties to advance an offering into a market that has a need. How open? Maybe thinking about this kind of the incumbent space, right? Again, these businesses, and we've mentioned many names, but let's not focus on anyone specifically. But there are these businesses have been around for 100+ years in some instances, right? And they have, they're sitting on legacy systems, they've got siloed data, all the usual narrative, and we've talked about this for years. Equally, we see from our customers and carriers around the world, some are much more mature in their innovation approach than others. Some are much more open to collaboration. That buy, build, partner argument always exists. What is the reception locally? And again, I say locally, respectful, of the enormous geography I'm talking about. What is the reception of the incumbents and the desire for them to work with external parties to accelerate their transformational innovation? And Óscar, we saw some of this in Mexico, right? We've had various conversations around, and I imagine the answer is some are more open and some are less open, right? But generally, and again, on a global perspective, where do you guys sit?
Let's talk numbers. In Mexico, we have 125 carriers, more or less. Out of those 125 carriers, I have 14 within my association. The 14 carriers that are within my association represents 90% of premiums produced in Mexico. So there's a Pareto there, that 80% of the results by 20% of the companies. So the biggest ones are really interested in collaborating and finding innovations, new products, new distribution channels in order to grow the business. They do have a mandate that they need to 2x, 3x their carrier size in the next 10 years, in the next decade or so. So the only way of doing this is to innovate, to create new products for new customers within new channels. And they know they are way too big. So when they're way too big, it's hard to notice the small opportunities in the market. Let's say my own company, Journey Sports, we insure athletes and we do other specialty insurance for sports. So traditional carriers, whenever they thought of accident insurance for athletes, they were like, nah, underwriting is way too complex. There are 160 sports. It's difficult to get around that. But they start partnering with companies like mine, and now they have hundreds of thousands of insured athletes, and we are growing that number, double digit every year. So they like that, and they are starting to bet in more opportunities like that. So they often ask to me like, hey, what other products do you see an opportunity in the market? I have capacity, I have the money, I want to develop new products. They still have much to learn on the risk of developing new products because, not all of them will succeed. Some of them will be huge successes. Some of them will flatline. Some of them will fail, absolutely fail. So in order to innovate, you need to take risks. What some carriers are doing is that they are creating an innovation branch of the carrier, and they are allowed to fail. So they are allowed to take risks, try new things, develop new trade channels, and focus on new ways of doing business. And this is quite useful because our companies, our 75 insurtechs, are selling to those branches. Now, not only the big ones, also the small ones are looking to get into the market. So they're trying to see, like, perhaps the big ones don't want a smaller opportunity. Well, I do have capacity for that small opportunity. So that's Mexico, but I can see the same thing repeating in Colombia, in Chile. And that's why Hugues and myself, from the first time we met, we said that, collaboration is the way forward for the region. There's not a lot of venture capital money. There is some venture capital money, but there's not a lot of it in order for us to enable to create a lot of carriers, neo insurers, and we cannot change that. So collaboration must be the way forward, and as long as we can keep convincing carriers, they will see the benefits, they will reap the benefits of this way of creating new products. And of course, this enables huge penetration for the market.
Sure. And then I'm assuming, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm assuming the direction of travel, the graph is saying that more and more incumbents are open to collaboration, right? It's going the right way, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah,
because the rest of the world is the same.
Once someone succeeds, the rest, they want like, hey, I want some of that. And they've seen it, especially with fintechs, a lot of distribution is growing, and retailers, they're growing huge specialty products within these players. So they're like, hey, I cannot connect my, COBOL system that was built 30 years ago to Mercado Libre. How do I do this? Yeah. Okay, there's an insurtech for that. And they partner up, they take the market, they grow a lot in sales and say, this is good. And more carriers go like, I want a piece of that.
Sorry, Matt, to add only one comment for Óscar. Agree with Óscar, and the main change I observed in the last 4 years. 4 years ago, only the innovation officer was interested in insurtech. Right now, in the case of Argentina, Chile, Mexico, Colombia, the CEOs go directly to the insurtech events because the CEOs say, hey, I can capture a lot of value here. So it was very interesting. For example, last week I was in the event of Argentina, and there were about 500 people, and there were about 30 CEOs of traditional careers. So it's amazing for that.
It's interesting. It's interesting the cycles though, because I also remember that. At all of these big events around the world, and ITC is one that we have a shared connection to. And of course, Beyond Boundaries will be launching in October. But, I also remember the early days, it was the CEOs were there in attendance. And now, it's kind of, understandably, it's passed down to their teams. And that's not to say their interest has waned or it's less so. It's just more, it's almost they're sold on the need to innovate, right? And so now they're pushing this to their team to take this on and that journey. But brilliant to hear it's front and center for LatAm. And Hugues, I was going to ask a quick question on the VC side. Óscar mentioned about the money flowing and all the rest. So again, there's lots of reports out there, including your own, which I mentioned, around looking at the kind of the finances and level of investments and who's taking what money and enabling that to those businesses to scale in different points. But we've also been through a bumpy couple of years from a VC perspective, right? We're also at a very interesting time where we've got a glut of capital sitting there that needs to be deployed. Valuations are now back up on the up, etc. Right? So tell me on the money side, how easy is it for insurtechs locally to access capital? Is that coming from the LatAm market? Is it coming from overseas? Obviously, you've got the North American, finance houses which are flushed with money relatively, and wanting to invest into risk and especially growing risk, such as the opportunity presented with you guys. Give me a little bit of kind of a sense of the VC space locally.
Yeah, from the VC space, basically, Latin American market, lack of resources, lack of financing. So there is very lack of financing. But we can observe in the last 4 semesters an increase of the investment. For example, in the first semester of 2025, we observe an investment of about $100 million. that is the whole amount of the 2024. So in one semester, we have the same money if you compare with the last year. So, but definitely, it's very strange because the valuation in Latin American market are very low if you compare with Israel or with the US. It's very low. But until now, we lack of resources, and I think that because local funds in Latin American market are not observing today a lot of value in insurtech space. But I think it's only we need to wait a little bit, and we must to have more and more impactful insurtech in Latin America. Today, I think that we are at a very early stage. So it's a way, it's a problem.
Okay, yeah, interesting, man. I think it's I mean, we have it's all relative, but we have the UK versus US conversation a lot, right? And that is something, because I spend so much time in North America, it's something that I see so visibly where it's difficult, right? It's difficult to scale or even to grow a business sometimes without that capital, or be pushed to profitability far too early and the rest, right? Depending on your models. So I need to, for your sake, wrap up imminently. Vision for the future. This is my penultimate, so it's not my final question. Vision for the future. So I'm thinking from the kind of LatAm insurtech, Latin American kind of insurtech scene. In 2028, what are we looking at? I mean, it's get the magic ball out, right? The crystal ball. Yeah. Oscar, what does 2028 look like, both Mexico and further?
Okay, so in order to predict the future, we need to see the numbers of today. For decades, the Mexican insurance market was growing at 3-4% year on year. So, it was stagnant, to say the least, stagnant. Yeah. But with insurtech, last year we saw a 14% increase in year-over-year sales on insurance. So what do I see for 2028? Well, I see that trend continuing. More and more specialty products will be produced for the base of our pyramids, the 80% of our population, that will be distributed through retailers, fintechs, marketplaces, and other, let's call them exotic channels or alternative channels of distribution. And this will impact the coverage level of our base of the pyramid. Now, starting with very simple products like phone insurance. Perhaps for someone in the US, if they lose their phone and they lose $500, $800, it might be uncomfortable, but that's it. When your family produces $400 a month and you lose the phone, well, that's a big challenge there, So these kinds of products will alleviate much of the burdens of the lower income producing families in Latin America. And this will allow for a more favorite light to the industry. Today, a lot of people believe that, insurance, they do everything to not pay the claims. And this will enable for a better outside of our industry. I do believe we will increase penetration. We will increase the GDP participation of the insurance market within our countries from the 2-3% that currently stands to perhaps 4%. That will be a great goal for 2028. Nice. And, all done through massive insurance and collaboration. So that's my oversight. There will be a lot of specialty products, a lot of specialty channels, and a lot of technology enabling claims, user experience, distribution, that kind of thing. Good man, Oscar.
Hugues, trying to build on that. Any thoughts?
Okay. Three things, because as you know, Latin American market is the more profitable market in the world. So what we can imagine in 5 years or 3 years, I don't know. I think that in every country, we will have the same way that we can observe today in Mexican, Colombia, Chile, and Argentina. So a massive insurtech association in order to co-build a collaborative way between insurtech, traditional carrier, traditional broker, and something else. First. The second one is a massive collaboration to build something very strong with the regulators in order to promote the increase rate in insurance. So penetration rate is a key point. We can observe an increase from 3 to 4%, for example, is one about $60 billion of value. So we will observe traditional carrier, traditional incumbent, insurtech, and regulator to work out of the box with the technology in order to cover, to protect the people. And the last one, the last one is we will observe a new strong actors in Latin America, Argentina. Argentina is back in the world because the change in Argentina is amazing in the last 2 years. So we will have a very large actor because it's about 50 million people, very close to Brazil, and Argentina are very, very innovative guys. So we can imagine that they will push Latin American market.
Love it. Gents, thank you. I think that's just the perfect ending to a great conversation. It's beautiful seeing both of you. October, you're both going to be at ITC Vegas?
Yeah, for sure we will be there.
For sure. Well, look, if we don't get together before then, that will be the moment. Thank you both for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned tons. Ladies and gents who have been watching, thank you very much for tuning in. Every week we'll have another interview. I think that was a fantastic conversation. I'm sure you'll agree. Hugues, Óscar, until October, if not before, thank you.